Live from New Delhi, you're watching DT India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. White House race on a knife edge with 2 days to go. Harris outlines her to-do list. Trump urges voters to save America. Iran leader vows retaliatory response to Israel. US warns Iran won't be able to restrain Israel if it attacks again. Spain mounts biggest peacetime disaster recovery operation as death toll reaches 213. Anger grows over slow response to floods. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Shankars to begin 6-day visit to Australia and Singapore, aim to boost bilateral ties and explore more avenues. Updates on US presidential polls first. Both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump campaigned on the final weekend before the November 5th polls. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump campaigned in both North Carolina, a key swing state, and Virginia on Saturday, where he reinforced his message on the economy and immigration. Trump will return to the state on Saturday evening, where he will hold a final rally in Greensboro.
The United States is now an occupied country, but it will soon be an occupied country no longer. On November 5th, 2024, this will be Liberation Day in America. It's going to be liberation.
Later addressing a rally in Virginia's Salem, Trump said he ran for office to rescue the economy from obliteration. Trump also addressed trans issues and vowed to protect parents' rights in Virginia rally. Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris began her North Carolina rally by attacking Donald Trump, which she has increasingly done in the final days of the election. Harris at a rally zeroed in on women's reproductive rights, warning that Trump will ban abortion nationwide. Harris also pledged to lower health care costs and accused Trump of wanting to repeal the Affordable Care Act.
Is not done, he would ban abortion nationwide, he would restrict access to birth control, he would put IVF treatments at risk, and get this, force states to monitor women's pregnancies. Just Google Project 2025, which still I can't believe they put in writing. And I think everyone here knows one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government shouldn't be telling her what to do. Not the government and not Donald Trump.
US President Joe Biden returned to his childhood hometown in Pennsylvania on Saturday for a final campaign stop in support of Vice President Kamala Harris. The president rallied union workers in the town where he grew up before his family moved to Delaware. Biden expressed his pride in having been the first president to walk a picket line and their efforts to restore pensions, and said Kamala Harris shared his views on hard-working people. Supporters of Republican nominee and former President Donald Trump hit the road for a car parade in Maricopa County, Arizona on Saturday, with Trump flags flying and cars decorated with campaign merchandise. The parade took off from Morristown and drove to Phoenix, some 90 kilometers, honking and cheering all the while. As the election is 3 days away, those voting for Trump encourage fellow Republicans and undecided voters to cast their ballots. As the dust settles on a pivotal week in US election campaign, candidates are making their final pushes ahead of the election day, November 5th. Both candidates are accusing each other of negative campaigning while launching no-holds-barred attacks on other. How does the American voter see this? Amritpal Singh travels to upstate Pennsylvania to take a stock. A report.
The race so tight, the stakes so high, that vilifying the opponent has become the norm this election season. Violent threats of revenge, racism, misogyny, negative campaigning, it's all there by the bucket load. The dance of democracy is as alluring as it is disturbing. So what impact do these negative campaigns have on US elections? How are the Americans responding to it?
Both sides are kind of like either scared or they hate each other.
The individuals that's running right now should bring more of unity instead of division. With the false narratives that's being pursued on both parties, Republican and Democratic, they're not bringing the unity that we probably need to even to begin the conversation of change. Who are we as the people to have that same unity or to show that unity?
Political watchers say it's so because the stakes this time are very high for both sides, especially in the swing states.
Both campaigns themselves are, making a very strong presence here in Pennsylvania because Pennsylvania is absolutely required for either that wants to win this. Democrats are very concerned that their base might not come out. Republicans are also making their campaigns on. If hardcore Republicans are charged up.
It's very interesting. I was very surprised when I saw it. It says Republicans for Harris Walls, clearly pointing out that they are trying to win over voters from the other side to win this election. It's that close, it's that tight, and swing states like Pennsylvania could indeed decide who sits in the Oval Office for the next 4 years. With cameraman Sanjay Jena, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in Collegeville, Pennsylvania.
Tensions continue to escalate in West Asia, with Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei vowing a response to Israeli airstrikes on Iran. According to a report in Axios, US has warned Iran against launching another attack on Israel, adding that Washington will not be able to restrain Israel if Tehran attacks again. On October 26, Israeli airstrikes hit military sites in Iran in retaliation to the October 1st Iranian rocket attacks on Israel. Israel has captured a senior Hezbollah operative from the Lebanese coastal city of Batroun. According to Israeli army, the operative serves as an expert in his field. Now, on your screens is a CCTV footage obtained by Reuters, which purportedly shows Israeli naval forces capturing a person who has not been officially identified. Calling it a kidnapping of Lebanese citizen, Lebanese Prime Minister Najib Mikati has called for an investigation into the incident. Meanwhile, the Israeli military said it had killed Jafar Khadr Faor, a commander of Hezbollah's Nasr Brigade rocket unit in southern Lebanon. It added that he had been responsible for multiple attacks on Israel since October 2023. Lebanon's health ministry has said that one person was killed in an Israeli strike on Hezbollah's South Beirut stronghold. The area has been cordoned off by the Lebanese army and security forces. As the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah escalates, hopes for a US-backed ceasefire have faded. Kyiv called on Moscow on Sunday to provide a list of Ukrainian prisoners of war ready for a swap after Russia accused Ukraine of sabotaging the exchange process. Kyiv and Moscow have frequently exchanged prisoners since Russia's conflict with its smaller neighbor in 2022. The last swap took place in mid-October, with each side bringing home 95 prisoners. On Saturday, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said that Ukraine was essentially sabotaging the process and has refused to take back its own citizens. Zakharova said Russia's defense ministry had offered to hand over 935 Ukrainian prisoners of war, but that Ukraine had taken only 279. Ukraine in turn said was always ready to accept its citizens and accused Russia of slowing down the exchange process. Tens of thousands of Hindus rallied in Bangladesh, urging the interim government to protect minorities against attacks and drop sedition charges against Hindu leaders. United Nations Human Rights Chief Volker Turk visited Dhaka this week and said Bangladesh court needs reforms before the trial of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina begins. More in this report.
Sedition cases filed against Hindu leaders in Bangladesh have raised concerns over safety of minority in the country. On Friday, torch procession was held in Dhaka to demand better treatment of minorities in the country. While in Chattogram, Sanatan Jagran Manch held a massive rally and demanded withdrawal of false cases. These cases were filed against 19 people, including Chinmoy Krishnadas Brahmachari of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. The platform issued a 2-day ultimatum and threatened to launch a series of protests if the case is not withdrawn by coming Monday. In view of current political development in Bangladesh, United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights recently visited Bangladesh. High Commissioner Turk urged that the protests, which highlighted demands for human rights, accountability and social justice, must be met with meaningful reforms.
I found the interim government to be aware of the problems with the proceedings in the International Criminal Tribunal in the past. My office has provided comments on amending the ICT law to bring it into line with international standards and to ensure the right to fair trial and that justice is served without compromising due process.
Hindu groups reported an increase in attacks since early August, following the ousting of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Earlier, former President of the United States, Donald Trump, condemned the barbaric attack on minorities in Bangladesh. In July, Bangladesh witnessed student-led protests against public sector job quotas. The unrest was some of the deadliest since the country's independence in 1971, resulting in over 1,000 deaths and numerous injuries, many of them among protesting university and college students. Aman Kumar Himanshu's report for DD India.
The world's biggest nature conservation conference closed in Colombia on Saturday with no agreement on a roadmap to ramp up funding for species protection. With other successes under its belt, the 16th Conference of Parties COP16 to the UN's Convention on Biological Diversity was suspended by its president Susanna Mohammed as negotiations ran almost 12 hours longer than planned and will resume at a later date to consider outstanding issues. The conference includes placing 30% of land and sea areas under protection and 30% of degraded ecosystems under restoration by 2030, reducing pollution and phasing out agricultural and other subsidies harmful to nature. For this purpose, it was agreed in 2022 that $200 billion per year be made available to protect biodiversity by 2030, including the transfer of $30 billion per year from rich to poor nations. The biggest ask from the summit to lay out a detailed funding plan turned out to be a bridge too far. Days after torrential rain swept the eastern region of Valencia in Spain, cleanup and rescue efforts continued throughout on Saturday. The historic flash floods in Spain have killed at least 214 people till now, and dozens were still unaccounted. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said the government would provide necessary resources, including sending 10,000 more troops and police officers to help with research operation and cleanup process. The tragedy is already Europe's worst flood-related disaster since 1967, which killed at least 500 people in Portugal. Frustration and anger among despairing Spain residents continued to grow at the state's response on handling the devastating floods that had destroyed towns in eastern Spain. On Saturday, Spain Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez conceded the response has been insufficient as he announced the deployment of 10,000 extra soldiers and police officers. According to the latest toll, Valencia's catastrophic flood had killed at least 214 and left dozens missing. Clashes between the Bolivian authorities and former president of Bolivia, Evo Morales, continues to escalate as the foreign ministry said that supporters of Morales have detained at least 200 military personnel hostage in Chapare. This comes after Morales' supporters began blocking roads for weeks in Cochabamba to prevent his arrest. Evo Morales has been accused of rape and human trafficking charges, and on Friday, after Morales announced that he would undertake a hunger strike unless the government agreed to negotiations, urged its supporters to consider suspending the roadblocks. Morales and current President Luis Arce have gone from close allies to bitter rivals in recent months as they jockey for position ahead of next year's presidential election. And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Delhi's air quality continues to deteriorate as thick layer of smog engulfed the national capital. New Zealand 171 for 9 at stumps. As Mexicans celebrate Day of the Dead, they grapple with what it means to hold on to tradition.
Who will be the next president of United States of America?
Will Donald Trump make a dramatic comeback, or will Kamala Harris become America's first woman president?
It's a tight race to the White House.
The knives are out and the battle lines sharply drawn.
He's becoming increasingly unstable and unhinged.
She's a threat to democracy because she shouldn't even be the candidate.
I'm Amritpal Singh.
I'm Shubhendu Ghosh.
We travel across the United States
To decode the issues at the heart of this polarized election.
Watch this space only on DD India.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj, and India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Shankars to begin his 5-day visit to Australia and Singapore. And during the visit, Shankars will travel to Brisbane and inaugurate India's 4th consulate in Australia. EAM will also co-chair the 15th Foreign Ministers Framework Dialogue with Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong in Canberra. The Minister will deliver the keynote address at the inaugural session of the 2nd Raisina Down Under to be held in Australian Parliament House. EAM is also scheduled to have interactions with Australian leadership, parliamentarians, members of the Indian diaspora, business community, media and think tanks. On the second leg of the visit, EAM will travel to Singapore for an official visit on 8th of November, and during which he will address the 8th roundtable of ASEAN India network of think tanks. He will also meet the leadership of Singapore to review the close partnership between the two countries and explore avenues to further enhance the bilateral relationship. Delhi Air Quality Index continues to deteriorate as it crossed the 500 mark on Sunday, 2 days after Diwali. Even on Sunday morning, Delhiites woke up to a thick layer of smog as the air pollution level now lies in the alarming hazardous category in the national capital, which is detrimental to the health of people living in Delhi and its adjoining areas. Shockingly, Delhi's air is getting worse every day despite all possible measures such as the Graded Response Action Plan GRAP 2 already being implemented in the national capital. The Commission for Air Quality Management ordered the implementation of Graded Response Action Plan in Delhi NCR on October 21st after overall air quality index dropped to very poor category in the region. After the Diwali celebrations, North Indian state of Himachal Pradesh has shown promising air quality results, with air quality index in Shimla remains comfortably below 50. Tourists visiting the Queen of Hills, Shimla, are taking notice of the healthier environment, praising the fresh air, scenic beauty and cleanliness. The other cities across the Himalayan state also experiencing normal to good levels. Environment experts are crediting a growing awareness of green Diwali practices and an increasing shift toward using green crackers for the improvement. Time now for some business news. India's startup sector raised $12.2 billion in the first 10 months of 2024, surpassing last year's total funding. Homegrown startups surpassed $1 billion in funding again across 119 deals in the month of October. September saw the second highest funding with $1.63 billion behind the peak of $1.92 billion registered in June. October alone saw over $1 billion secured across 119 deals with $846.2 million from growth and late-stage funding, according to data by The Credible. Recently, the Indian government approved a Rs 1,000 crore venture capital fund to boost the space sector's growth. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said on Sunday that his government planned to cut student loans from around 3 million Australians by 20%, wiping around $10.49 billion in debts. The move builds on May's budget, which attacked cost of living pressures in Australia and gave debt relief for students, as well as more investment to make medicines cheaper and a boost to rent assistance program. Cost of living pressures, stoked by stubbornly high inflation, have a special resonance with federal election looming and centre-left Labour government now polling behind their Conservative opponents. And time now for sports. India will look to wrap up New Zealand's innings as early as possible on day 3 of the third test match at Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai, and India reduced New Zealand at 171 for the loss of 9 wickets with a lead of 143 runs in their second innings after the end of day 2. Ravindra Jadeja and Ravichandran Ashwin wreak havoc as the duo took 7 New Zealand wickets between them in the second innings. Earlier, India were bowled out for 263, taking the first innings lead of 28 runs. Shubman Gill top scored with 90, while Rishabh Pant slammed 60 runs. In reply, left-arm New Zealand spinner Ajaz Patel picked up 5-wicket haul to bring the visitors back in the game. On day 1, Ravindra Jadeja claimed his 14th 5-wicket haul in Test cricket as India made a remarkable comeback to bowl out New Zealand for 235 runs. Bournemouth handed defending champions Manchester City a 2-1 at the Vitality Stadium, ending City's 32-match unbeaten run in Premier League on Saturday. This was also Bournemouth's first ever league win against City, courtesy goals from Antoine Semenyo, and City superstar Haaland delivered a blank for the visitors and has now scored only once in his last 4 league outings. Haaland looked uncomfortable in the first half and appeared to be struggling with injury. Bournemouth boosted their joint killing credentials as they secured a third home victory on the bounce, having beaten Arsenal last time out. City dropped down to second and failed to take advantage of Arsenal's earlier falter, while Bournemouth move up to 8th. A second-half comeback from Liverpool saw them return to the Premier League summit with a 2-1 win over Brighton and Hove Albion at Anfield. Liverpool have now won 8 of their 10 Premier League matches under new coach, at the most ever by a Reds manager in his first 10 top-flight matches in charge of the club. With Arsenal and Manchester City losing, Liverpool are top of the pile on 25 points, 2 clear of their nearest challengers after opening 10 games, with Brighton are 7th. Before winding up this edition of DD News Live, in fact, we take you to Mexico, where people dressed up in Mexico City to participate in parade as part of the Day of the Dead celebrations.
Lucha Reyes. Claro que sí, Lucha Reyes. Un aplauso a la ANDA, por favor.
Ya. Con 8 diferentes centros penitenciarios en la CDMX. Esta pieza muestra la seccional Hazme Valer, productos penitenciarios. Salió en películas como Esquina Baja, de 1948, Una gallega baila mambo.
That's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, and you can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.